Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are on episode 19. Welcome to One Day Today. This is it's been a interesting time in humanity in general. You know, we all obviously the coronavirus is we're more than a few, maybe almost 3 months of dealing with the new experience of the world, a new era that's coming up. But there's obviously some new developments about what happened in Minneapolis and all the fallout of people responding to the injustice of racial divides that a lot of people weren't even aware were still there. And I feel like that a lot's coming to light. And I want to just welcome you all for joining us. We have two guests, as always, I'm really excited to hear them share. But I thought this episode, I'd like to share a song with you that I felt kind of called to share by one of my heroes, Bob Dylan. And this song it feels like it's the right time. It's timeless, and it's something that just relevant. And for me, it just always points to that humanity that we forget is there in us all. And I'm gonna share this song with you. This is a Bob Dylan song. I'm sure you've heard it before. I hope this I've tested the microphone for a second before, so I hope this sounds all right. But I'm gonna perform this song, one of my favorites. Here we go. All right. And without further ado, how many rows must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they are forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many times can a man turn his head, pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he sees the sky? How many years must one person have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Thank you for letting me share that. It's one of my favorite songs. I felt compelled to share that, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to introduce and bring in our co-host, Matthew. Matthew, how's it going?
What's up, brother man? Doing all right. Thank you for that song. It does really feel appropriate to me as well. Those questions couldn't be asked at a better time. How many lifetimes is it going to take before we as a species actually start thinking for ourselves? How many days, how many deaths, how many, what is it going to take to actually get to the point where we are sovereign in ourselves without the need for someone else to give us all the answers? And start actually holding ourselves accountable first and then our leaders second.
Mm.
And the answer is there. It's blowing in the wind. It's always available. It's always available. All we have to do is just stop and listen and tune in. Slow down and just pay attention. And the answer is right there. It can be right now. It can always be right now. It's just our choice.
Right. It's just seeing ourselves in the mirror for who we truly are. And, and it's through for me, it's through the questions that I realized they're like, as you were saying before we started, there's nothing we can be sure about. And it's in the questions that invoke wonder, that invoke, maybe I don't know. Maybe there's something bigger than just what I think and what I think I know and my limited human understanding of this infinite universe, and it's like, who are we to think that we have any answers? It's in the questions that the real answer is. But thank you for letting me share that. I would like to invite our first guest. We have Tom Kearin joining us. Tom.
Yeah, hi, Aaron. Hi, Matthew. Thanks for having me, guys.
Really, so happy to have you.
I got to say, I love that song, and you did it beautifully, and it says so much that I think, Matthew, you said the answers. I think we're always looking for answers. I think we grew up like that. People taught us that but no one taught us that when there's a problem, the solution's already there. And I think we're always looking for outside of us for the answers. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you the answer is not outside of us. It is inside. It is that divinity. It's what we're all connected to. It's what you said, the cosmos, the universe, whatever you want to call it. We're all part of that. And love is what holds that together. And I don't mean love in the sort of romantic love. I mean love in that pure positive energy, that connection, that what we come from, we are made of stardust, right? We come from the cosmos. We're made of that light. And that's where the answer is. So the more that we look to others for answers, the more even, many say, many look at God as a separate entity, a separate power, a separate supreme being, when really God is inside of all of us. We are all part of that. And so instead of blaming things on him or looking for him for the answers, we are him, right? We are he. And so I think you said it. It's great. That's where we got to get the answers. We've got to kind of look inside ourselves.
I love it. I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna let you take the stage. I wanna hear your share. This is I appreciate that you liked it. That's Tom. The stage is officially yours.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Abram, again, and thank you, Matthew. I think I want to follow that thread, Abram, that you and Matthew have started pulling on, because even the world events and what's going on politically, what's going on with the recent events, what's going on with COVID, I think these are just symptoms of disconnection. And I think as each of us, as we get connected to that divinity inside, as we connect with that higher, wiser, broader perspective. I think one of you guys said it, that that we think we know the answers, and we have all this disagreement. Democrats, Republicans, we all think we're right, and what we're lacking, our perspective is puny compared to that higher, wiser, broader perspective, that universal perspective, that God perspective that we're connected to. That's the perspective. That's what we need to connect to, because we don't know how all the pieces are. We don't know why things happen, and necessarily, and we think we do, and we think we're right, but who has the right answer? And so the right answer is when you get connected to that love, you can't go wrong, and really, when it's not what you do. Because I think we all are doers, right? I was brought up as a doer, and before, I sort of a few years ago, I had sort of my epiphany of be something wonderful, and this whole message of love, and reaching for that higher concept of who you are, right? We have a higher, broader concept of who we are, and before that, I was just banging it out like everybody else, reacting. And thinking that I'll fix it, I'll do it, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll fix this, I'll fix that. It's not about that. You got to first start inside and decide who you're going to be, and then from being that love, being that goodness, then do whatever inspires you, because you can't go wrong once you make that connection, right? And before that, I was just a doer. The heck with connections. Meditate, are you kidding? And back then, yeah. So my message really on this stage, and I think this is a great stage. I think, Matthew, you asked me earlier, and I'm not sure if this is the right time to talk about that, but what one day means to me. And it I don't look at one day as something in the future. I look at one day as that's today. It's the one day when we're finally gonna connect to that love. We're finally gonna connect to that divinity. We're gonna finally connect to that higher power, that broader, wiser perspective, that broader, wiser you. And maybe it's today, right? Only only each person knows, right? And I think we can blame, we can disagree, but until we go inside and connect to that higher power, that richness inside, and really try to get connected to that higher perspective, we're not going to get there, right? And I think everything that's going on right now is our frustration. You're frustrated when you're not connected to that love. Loving feels good, right? Anything else other than love does not feel good. It's all temporary, right? What's permanent? That divinity inside is permanent. And I think I said to Matthew earlier, and you, Aaron, earlier, that it's only when you are at a point of total vulnerability that you realize your invulnerability, that you realize that you can't be hurt when you are standing in that love. You can't be touched. Nothing can go wrong when you're in that love, when you're loving. It's only when we step out of it and we think we can manage it at our own puny little perspective as an earthling, as a human walking around in these physical bodies that we're just borrowing. And we get full of ourselves thinking that we can make those decisions, but really it's only when we're connected. So I'm a lover and it feels good, right? Why, I'm not talking about the romantic love. That's good too. But I'm talking about that pure positive energy that we all come from and that we're all part of. And that will return to 100%. Guys, we're mostly spiritual beings. We're mostly that. And that's where this frustration comes from. We're trying to bang it out in physicality. and we're kidding ourselves. So that's the base of my message today, is that what's going on can't be solved at a macro level. It's each one of us has to make that decision to reach for that higher concept of who we are, that bigger, broader you, that better you, that more loving you, that you that's connected to that divinity, to that God energy, whatever you want to call it, infinite mind, infinite intelligence. It's real, it's energy, and it's there. And if you can connect with that, you're going to do things. And when you do things, you're going to want to do things out of love. Anything else that other than that pure love is not going to feel right. And that is really my message today. That one day is today, one day is now. Now. That's what we live in, guys. It's not tomorrow. There's no sense in dragging yesterday along with you. It's now. That's where your power is. That's where the love is. And that's where we are right now. We're in that. We're in love. So that is really the thread that I wanted to share with you today. I think once you get a hold of that, it's really addictive. It's really incredible. And any time that, even this morning, I just want to share with you, early this morning, I was working on a project for a company that I help. And I found myself get a little frustrated. I go, where's that coming from? Complete disconnection. And that did not feel good. And I immediately recognized it. And I said, I got to get back connected to that love, because that does not feel good. And that's what's going on right now today in the world. We just don't, I think we're at a tipping point. And I think that we're being pushed by the universe, by that energy. But remember that the universe, the energy, God, that's us. We're part of that. We are part of that whole. So we're being driven by that higher, broader perspective that we are. Right? That divinity inside is what's pushing these events. And you're saying, well, Tom, these are terrible events. They are terrible events. But it's pushing us to wake up. Each one of us has to wake up. And the timing for you to wake up is as humanity, as a world, we need to wake up to see to really look at what's going on. The answer is blowing in the wind, but it's also inside you. And so you have the answer. And I just want to get back that goodness, that love, that's inside all of us. Hate does not feel good. Hate is not who we are. So whenever we hate, whenever we're violent, whenever we're cruel, that's not who we are. That can't feel good. You can't tell me if you're acting like that feels good to you. And I know that you're just crying out that to feel good. That part of that, what you're doing, and part of all of that is somebody looking for help. And again, it's inside. Everybody's always looking for someone from the outside. It's not, it's inside. And when you reach deep, you can find it. So that's really what I wanted to share with you guys today. I'd like to open it up, maybe see what you guys think, Abram and Matthew.
Thank you, Tom, for sharing that beautiful message. I'm curious. So at what point in your life did you experience that love which you are conceptualized, you're explaining and sharing with us?
It's an interesting question, because we're always flirting with it, right? But I think my whole life I've never felt quite right. And I thought it was me. What's wrong with me? I felt restless. I always felt there was something more, no matter what I was doing, right? And I come from business for years, right? Being out in business. And then I was working in South America, running some work study travel institutes, language institutes with a business partner down there. And it was just one cold evening that I said, I really got to do something else. I got to really be something else. I want to be more. And that's sort of my, and I felt this sort of, it was almost like a chill and then a very warm feeling. And I knew it was right. And I go, I want to feel that all the time. I want to, I think whenever we act in a way that's not in a nice way, it doesn't feel good. And we don't feel good. And I think we, if we were truthful for ourselves, we'd know that. And so it's not to be perfect, because we're all going to make mistakes. But that's when it happens. And that's when I as soon as that happened, probably within, 60 days, I moved back to the US to really create a organization around that, which I call Be Something Wonderful. But Be Something Wonderful is not just an organization, it's a message. It's a message it's a message to be that higher concept, to be that greater, higher concept of you. And that's what I try to do every day. And it's really just connecting to that, because it doesn't matter what you do, where you move to, you're always going to take yourself with you. And so until you connect to that higher perspective, you're not going to solve the problem, right? But, I talk about this in a book that I have. I sort of I would run away. I grew up on the East Coast and I moved to the West Coast, and then I moved down to South America, and then I came back from South America, and I said, I don't want to run from this anymore. I want to find it. I want to find that love. And when I discovered it was always there. It's sort of like, peeling back the layers and discovering, wow, is that me there? That is me. That's the real me. The real you, Abram. The real you, Matthew, is that divinity, that light. That's who you really are. And all of the ancient prophets and masters, they all talked about this. It's the same message that Jesus and all of those talked about. All the spiritual teachers talk about the same. It's the same message, that we're one. We're all in this together, and we're all love, and we all come from that love. And that's what we return to when we leave this physical existence. So, boy, imagine if each one of us could start connecting to it. That's how you change the world, right? It's not these big, broad programs. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You're preaching to the choir. That's the same questions that that we're asking, like what happens when we all show up to our own authentic selves, when we can, peel away that onion, all these things that we falsely identify with ourselves, the ego, the flesh, the shadow, the id, whatever vantage point you're coming from, it's pointing to the same thing. It's like we identify with the separation. It's that voice that says I can't, that voice that says I'm afraid, that it's something that builds up, and we don't even know it's there until we actually are in a space where we're in too much pain, where we're like, well, maybe I don't know, maybe I haven't tried everything. And it's like you're saying, it's like I had the same experience, just running from myself, and
you can't get away. You never can get away.
You can't. It's gonna catch up, and that's what this is for me. I was running away from I was trying to make people. I was trying to be enough. I was trying to make people like me. I was trying. I played music, and it's like, hey, do you like me now? Am I good enough now? And it's like, it was just this toxic cycle of not being enough. And and I was. I was trying to, impress people or just be affirmed by others, valuing, who I am, and not even seeing within me what has always been there. And that's kind of what One Day has been for me. It's been a self-expression of what's always been inside me, what I've been running away from my whole life. And now I'm I still have those fears. I'm still afraid sometimes when people think about me. And I've talked to Matthew about this. I'm afraid if people think because one of our things we're doing is one day is we're starting a new holiday. And I had a fear. I've had a fear, and sometimes I still do. People think I'm this crazy new holiday guy. Like, it's like, oh, here's this guy who wants to start a new holiday. And like, I have those thoughts. But then I realized my commitment, what I'm standing for in the world is, my children who are not even born yet, to be able to play together with children of every color and every creed, and to play, create, think, just where there's no separation. We're all contributed by our own unique talent, gift, and passion and genius. And
Beautiful.
that commitment is way bigger than my fear of, oh, people don't like me and poor me, and oh, I hope I don't look weird and crazy. And it's like, I'm done with the survival paradigm. It's not, there's something way bigger than just me fearing for my survival.
There's something I love that. There's something big going on here, and there's something much bigger than ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we're connected to it. I love that because, fear, really the only one you have to, inside that higher you loves you just as you are. And you know what? I love Lauren Daigle's music because she seems to touch on, it's very Christian and beautiful. And she seems to touch on that kind of stuff, that you are enough, and that, Abram, what you're doing is out of love. And how can you go wrong with that? How can people criticize that? The only people are going to criticize that are the ones that are sort of don't feel that. And so you can't go wrong. You can't get it wrong with what you're doing because it's out of love. When you do things out of love, there are no errors. It's just better and better and better,
I read something the other day. It was just what you're saying is like, it's hard to, when you're a butterfly, it's hard to communicate. The caterpillars don't speak the language of butterflies. It's hard to explain because you think it's in the realm of our mind and thinking. Like, God is not my thoughts. God and truth are not my thoughts of God or truth. They're not my thoughts about my thoughts of God or truth. It's an experience, and everyone has a different word for that. But that's
beautiful.
That's amazing. Matthew, you have anything you'd like to ask?
Oh man, this is one that we could go on for hours. I feel like, like there's that whole invitation into the experience is what this is to me. There are no words that can adequately convey the experiences I've had that have led me to the place of openness and honesty and transparency and accountability and gratitude and love that I recognize as myself now. Those aren't verbs, they're nouns. They're what I am.
Right.
And
yes, state of being, it's who you are. Wow, that's beautiful.
Exactly. And there have been a multitude of ways that, like you were saying, Tom, like the spiritual masters have invited that experience throughout the ages, and this is just the next level of the invitation to me.
I like that. Yeah, we've got to level up as a world, as a humanity. We've got to. It's a call to level up because it's not going to get better, right? And you got to level. Do you want more of this, or do you want to, wow,
create something new, a new era?
Exactly. And like you were saying, like you were pointing at, I see what's happening now is like analogous to birthing pains. And this is the birth of a new paradigm to me. At least I hope that's what it's going to turn out to be. I don't actually know. But like, that's my prayer, that there's a saying that's come up multiple times over the past few months, and it still feels present and relevant today. It's until the pain of change, until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, no change will take place.
That's beautiful. That's perfect. Yeah, that's it.
And it's like we have literally backed ourselves into a corner as a nation where we have a government that has no accountability, not for themselves or their actions, does not listen to the will of the people, is not connected to the day-to-day existence of us, has no comprehension of what it's like to actually live as a regular citizen of this country. And they are enabling a police force to literally act without empathy and compassion, and to dehumanize us. I have friends that, like, they talk about it as if they have PTSD, that as soon as they see a cop, they just turn to the other street because they're too scared of what might happen because of everything that has happened in the past. And I feel like until there's that level of accountability from us first, from ourselves first, for ourselves, and that invitation gets spread, like, I don't know, like, there's so much to this, and it breaks my heart. Like, it absolutely breaks my heart that we've come to this, and yet this also seems like this is the way we learn as humans.
I think so. And again, if we are divinity and we are creators, remember, we're all creators, right? We create, like we have that creative power. We created this as a world, and we can also create something more and better.
Exactly.
So, and to your point, until you really fall, and then and look, I don't care who it is, presidents of countries, chiefs of police, whatever it is, whoever, people with billions of dollars, it doesn't matter. And I like billions of dollars. I don't have anything against that. But if you think that gives you power, that's not real power. None of that. That the real power is that connection. Wow. If you think you're powerful with billions, or as a president or as a police chief, wait until you connect to that source energy. Woo!
So
that's power.
You cannot be hurt.
Love is there's no amount of hate that can stand up to love. So love always wins. And so if we can connect to that, hate can't stand that to love. And you've seen it, right? There's been a lot going on, but there's been some extraordinary demonstrations of love as well, if you saw that, and compassion across the nation. And that shows you that this is a tipping point. This is possible.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
We're in a new era, and we are creating a new era because we say we are. We say the old paradigm. We're faced. COVID has pointed us to our own. We're forced to look in the mirror, and we're seeing. And a lot of us are really, how did we get here? Like, we don't see what we like, and it's like, this is the opportunity for us there's never been as big a desire and an opening for connection, for community, for collaboration, and now there's never been as big an opening for humanity in our globalized world, how interconnected we are. And I really appreciate you sharing with us, Tom. One of the take home points of kind of what you're just saying is, like, I feel this is a thought of mine is, as humans, as individuals, we're born sitting down, and we have to hit the ground flat on our face, fall down before we can stand up. And I kind of see that as what's happening with humanity right now. It's like we're collectively falling on our faces, and we're like realizing, like, wait, maybe I don't want to be flat on the floor. Maybe we shouldn't go back to just sitting down. Maybe we could stand up and, create a beautiful world that works for us all, which we're all contributing to. But thank you so much for sharing, Tom. I hope you'll come back and share with us again. I really appreciate you and acknowledge who you're being.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Matthew. I really enjoyed it, guys. Love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom.
We'd like to bring you back on the end and let you and Joe talk for a bit too. So if you have time, feel free to stick around. But for now, thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. And thank you again, Tom. like we've all been saying, this is an interesting new time for humanity. But we want to hear your story. We want to hear you share with us. What is your contribution? You're a unique genius. Please join us. We encourage and invite you to share on the stage with us. If you'd like to participate, go ahead. You see the link on the bottom of the screen. You can go ahead on the website and you'll have an opportunity to share on the stage, to share who you are. Share your story, your testimony. It really contributes to us all. And, it advances and moves forward what our mission is. And our one-day mission is bringing you and I and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. And that's what this space is for. I'd like to invite our next guest. We have Joe Petroski. Did I say that right? Petroski? How do you say your last name? Petroski. Yeah. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you, Joe. I'm excited to hear you share.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it was really nice to listen to that. And I agree, with what he's talking about is the love, and that's the way that we need to connect. But what I'm seeing is when I'm working with people is people are really finding right now that their biggest cruxes are coming into place. And it's like you said, we have to be able to fall onto our face completely before we get up and change. And right. What I've been finding is people when they're I'm from Minnesota, where that vandalism was started by that man dressed in black with the umbrella. That was an auto store that I went to at one time. The Napa that was burned, I had gone there. The Target, the Cub, I had gone there. I shopped there. The pharmacy that was set on fire was at the end of my daughter's block, where she still lives. And so it really hit me. And when I've been talking to people from home and I've been talking to people and clients, people are really coming up and they got so much anger and they're so pissed off. And so it's very interesting because there's people that are pissed off because a black person got killed, and then they're pissed off because of what the police did, and then they're pissed off about the protesters doing. And so I said, okay, I said, well, what is it that's inside you that's really got you upset? Because the thing that we want to be able to find is if I'm ferociously pissed and I'm ferociously angry about something, there's something besides something that I saw on the TV. Even though it's completely, totally 1000% atrocious, the way that black men are followed because they're black, they're killed because they're black, that kind of stuff is completely atrocious. But when we get completely, really tangled up in our own anger, we want to look to see what is it that is in me that I'm having problems with. And one of the things that I had thought, and the reason I'm talking about this is I want to be able to help people change. We need to know what's stuck in order to be able to change. And so if I have this really bad anger about it, I have to look back and say, okay, why am I pissed about this? So I'm sitting there and I'm seeing these people protest, and I think that they should protest, but I'm mad and I'm angry. Then when I look and it's like, oh, if I would have stood up to a parent or a teacher when I was little and said that that's not okay, that's not right, I would have gotten so much trouble. And so when people watch people protest, whether they're taking a knee at a football game or something like that, there's a reason. It's like, you can't do that. You can't fight authority. There's this fear that they have that's stopping them from allowing any kind of protest. Because I ask people, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Taking a knee at a football game is a horrible, despicable thing, and it's like, oh, really? Okay, cool. Okay. Walking down the street in front of the police precinct, in the middle of the day is a horrible, despicable thing. It's like, oh, okay. Blocking the freeways, not riding the buses back when Rosa Parks did it, when they just basically said, we're not going to ride the buses. That was a horrible, despicable thing. And I'm like, okay, let's look at this. It's horribly despicable to stand up and say, ouch. And it's like, okay, how come it's horribly despicable to do that? Because I have a friend, and the guy is one of the nicest guys. If you see, you will always see him at philanthropic events, and he likes to go there because he likes parties, but he likes to be able to give checks. The guy grew up poor. And now he's got 3 businesses. He's really incredibly successful. And he's been stopped more times because of being black. He says he no longer will ever buy a Cadillac because being a black man in America in a Cadillac, he says, is the dumbest thing you could be. He says, when I started to drive a Mercedes, he says, the amount of times I got stopped just plummeted. And it's like, ow. And the guy says, it really stinks because I much prefer a Cadillac because it's more comfortable. I'm bigger and I like a Cadillac. Mercedes are smaller and they're cramped. But so I ask people, it's like, when we're so bothered, when we're so upset, what is it inside of us that's really the part that's hurt? What is the part that's scared? And so at what point is going to be something that you're willing to be able to say, yes, this person that's really mad, that's really upset, they get to protest. Okay. And what's the part, and when we see this, when we, with the COVID, okay, what part in us is going to finally be able to say, okay, hold on a second. The president's sitting there and he's listening to the two doctors talk about this. And they say, we're going to liberally report the COVID deaths. And so if they have COVID and they die from cancer, we're going to say it's a COVID death. And so we hear in front of us that the authorities tell us that they're liberally going to report. It's like, I don't know about you guys, but the last time that liberal, or actually the first time that liberal to me was like, holy crap, I'll never do that again, is when I was writing a paper in college and the professor said, you're awfully liberal with your facts. And he gave me a D-, because I was liberal instead of spot on. And so I got a D on my paper. But the government is in front and they're saying, we're liberally going to do this. We're going to lie to you. Okay. And people basically say, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden they come back a couple of weeks later and they said, oh, you know what? We over exaggerated, we told you the wrong thing. And so now we're going to correct it, And so it's like, and people are still sitting there. And I tell people, it's like, there's nothing going to change in America until the cable goes out. Because as long as people can sit there and, as long as they can be on their phone, as long as they can be on Netflix, as long as they can be on YouTube, as long as they can be on Snapchat, iFunny, things like that, it's going to be too easy to just sit there, and never change. And so I ask people, it's like, when you're really looking at this, when you're ferociously angry at somebody for doing something, I want to see is it really what they're doing? And, certainly when they're burning, the stores that my daughter shops at, now my daughter is going to have to go, another 20 minutes to go to a grocery store, and so when they burn the grocery store, when they burn Lloyd's Pharmacy that's been there for like 85, 90 years, and that family was just an incredible family. When they burned that, certainly I'm really, really pissed and I'm really upset. But there's a part of me that knows it's like, okay, there's a hurt that's going on. And I can't just get to the point where it's like completely black or completely white. And, and that analogy really holds because there's nothing right now that's completely black and completely white. And so when I talk with people right now, there's so many people that are so overly upset and wrought and everything, and they question their own sanity. I was like, okay, well, let's think about this a second. Okay, we just went through 4 months of completely shutting down. You have to wear a mask in order to go some places. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to a movie theater. You can't go to the beach. That's my pet peeve. You can't go to the beach, and it's like, if you do go to the beach, you can't sit down. So there's all of these things that they've completely taken our lives, and our lives aren't ours anymore, And then when people started coming out and they started walking and biking and things like that, because I do that. I walk in the morning, I walk at night, and all of a sudden there was families out biking and walking, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. This is like back in the 50s and the 60s when families hung out together, And then all of a sudden they come in and they shut you down a little bit more. Stay close to home, and people say, okay, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so at what point are people going to look up and they're going to question it? It's like, okay, you told us that you were going to liberally report, which got me a D- in college. And now you told us that you did get a D-, and you said that you're going to change it, but yet we're still having to shut the world down, And so, and then when this whole COVID thing comes up, It's like, okay, there was 3 police officers that threw grocery carts through bus stop windows, and okay, just a second. There's 3 police officers that vandalized public property, city property on purpose. And they haven't been reprimanded? I don't know. I would think that would piss somebody off. How come the news stations aren't trying to follow that story? The person that you can see through the gas mask, and he's got a gas mask that's supposedly issued by the police department. His boots and his pants were the same thing, and supposedly he walked right to the precinct after he did it. There's no news station following that down and saying this is John Smith and this is where he's from. The fact that in Minnesota, most of the protesters that were arrested either 2 or 3 nights ago now, I've lost count, they weren't from the state of Minnesota. And the majority of them that were arrested were white. When they had the peaceful protest, they had 2 rows of mostly African Americans, and they were sitting down Indian style with their arms crossed or with their arms interlinked. And behind them, there was 2 rows of other people, mostly black people, with their hands up in the air. It was people behind that started to throw the bricks. Excuse me, but where did you find the bricks in the city? Okay. I've lived there, I've lived in Minnesota in those areas for 47 years. Okay. Trust me, there's no red bricks to be had. All the buildings around there were made with big blocks. Okay. So where did they find red bricks? Okay. Nobody's asking that question, all these full water bottles and everything like that, where'd they all come from? And then, why did the police, when they were spraying the mace and when they were shooting the concussion grenades, why did they shoot them at the people that were sitting down? And why did they shoot them at the people that were standing up with their hands in the air? And why did they spray the mace and the pepper spray at the peaceful protesters? Those things have aim. They could have easily shot it to the people in the back. They could have easily walked up and not touched the people that were sitting down on the ground. And they could have done it to the people in the back, or they could have walked around those peaceful protesters. So what I'm asking people to do is, what are you really pissed about? How come you're okay? And when I ask this, people expect me, I'm a healer, I'm supposed to be Om and Namaste. And it's just like, okay, I've been doing this work for 19 years. And it's like, I'm not going to be that. When we have a session, you're going to laugh, it's going to be funny, and you're going to feel better. When I work with people, it's so incredible because Tom and I, we really share a lot of similar beliefs, because my whole deal is I want people to be their magnificent self. And when he was talking about the divinity that we all have in us, none of us were held and said, oh shit, look at this one. It's like, are we sure we're going to keep this kid alive? I think we should throw this kid back. When we were held, whether it was by the nurses, the doctors, or family, because granted, we didn't all grow up in great places, somebody held us and said, oh my God, look at this miracle. Look at this amazing kid. So that's the part that I want us to all feel again, is I want us to be able to feel how magnificent we are. And when you're walking down the streets and you're seeing that other person, look at them like they are the most magnificent being you've ever seen, because they probably are. And that whole thing about when we see people and we don't know what they've been through, we don't. You had asked about the one day. What does that mean? One day, for me, it means today's the only day I have. Okay, I've had 3 different instances in which I almost died. 18 years ago, 19 years ago, the doctors actually sent me home to die because I had a very severe illness. They had worked with me for 6.5 years. I was on oxygen for almost 2, and they knew that they only had 1 more treatment that they could give me. But if it didn't work, one of the doctors thought it would kill me. The other doctor said it would hasten my death. So they sent me home to die. And luckily, I met an incredible energy healer. I went to him and his students. After the 2nd hour, I was perfectly healthy. Or after the 2nd hour, I was off the oxygen. And after the 3rd, I was perfectly healthy. So, and one of the other things, and when people talk about these viruses, you don't know Jack. And it's just like, actually, I do. When I was a kid, I had the Hong Kong flu. And the Hong Kong flu was one of those viruses that was incredibly dangerous, incredibly toxic, and people died from it all the time. They wouldn't let me go to the hospital because they were afraid that I would infect the hospital. But the doctor had said, it's like, hey, and my mom says, should we lock him up in his room now that we know what's going on? And he says, well, I've been here already 2 days treating your son twice a day. He says, and your neighbors have been here and they've been exposed to all of his, his brother and his sister. If they were going to get it, they would have gotten it. And so I went through an incredibly horrible time. It was a very difficult illness. I had to take ice baths 3 days in a row to be able to break the fevers. But last August, I had a horrible issue that happened. I ended up in the hospital and had to have emergency surgery, and ended up having a second emergency surgery and then a surgery to correct that. And when I was in the hospital, the first 4 days, I had this dream that came up every time I fell asleep. It was so bad that I didn't want to fall asleep. And the dream kept on asking me, it's like, do you accept yourself? It's like, yeah, it's like, really, do you accept yourself? And so it would show me something in my life in which I made a mistake. It showed me something with, past relationships with my daughters. Every time I fell asleep, it would show me something different. And it would ask me, do you accept you? Do you accept yourself? And it finally came to the point where I'm in bed, can't do anything, in massive pain, so I'm sitting there, it's like, okay, so, hey, you're in bed, you're bumping a log, can't make any money, can't do anything. Do you still accept yourself? And I had to wrestle with that, like 2 or 3 sleeps in order to be able to, like, yes, I do, just the fact that I'm here, I do accept myself. And so I'm asking people, it's like, there's so many things. And during this COVID time, when you haven't had to go to work, you haven't had to go to the meetings, you haven't had to travel out of town, you've had the opportunity. And like Tom had said, it's like when he was down in South America, he said, do I want to be doing this? And so for ourselves, it's like, what is it that's important? And for me, what I look at is all of us have been talking about the fact that we have to be in order to be able to make differences. And so for me, one of the things that I've chosen to be is that I try that when I see somebody, whether I'm walking on the street, whether they're the cashier or the stock person, no matter who they are, I try and make them feel and know in that brief interchange that they matter and that they're loved. Okay. They might not get it when I'm walking down the street and I just smile to them or I say something. But right now, what I'm asking people to do is really step into your power, because that, Tom was talking about the divinity within, and so it's like the divinity that we have within inside of ourselves. We all are that gift, and I'm that gift that I can give to you. Okay. And so I'm that, God basically made me in God's image. And in every culture that I know, Native American, Aboriginal, Celtic, everybody at one time knew they were the chosen people. That didn't mean that I'm the only one. They just knew that Creator made me. So Creator's got to feel that I'm special. So it's my belief that if I can go out and I can make you feel just a little bit happier, a little bit nicer, that that somebody took the time to smile at you, to nod, to wave, anything like that, it's going to make the world a little bit better, one person at a time. So I haven't been watching the time clock.
Well, you're great. I appreciate everything you just said. You kind of connected a lot of dots with what Tom was saying. So in your experience, in your work, with help healing and helping people seeing their own power, like where in your journey did you discover that for yourself? Like when did you realize the gift that you are?
There was 2 times. One, I was actually on a retreat, and the counselor had took me, and she said, Joe, what it was actually up at Hazleton, Minnesota, at the treatment center, and I was in the Al-Anon portion of that. And she says, Joe, would you be willing to talk to these women about what it's like to grow up in a dysfunctional family and everything? I thought, I was like, oh, okay, I'm thinking whatever. She had me talk to these 17 women, and I told them about what it was like to grow up me, and all 17 women were crying like crazy. And it was the first time in my life that I realized I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the bad person. I wasn't the bad issue. That was one. And then the other is when I had that illness that I told you about where the doctor sent me home to die, I had to go and I had to tell people, you cannot do that near me. If you do that near me, I will get sick. And so I ended up being very responsible for myself because I was immune compromised for over 3.5 years. And so when I started to stand up for myself and I took care of me, I realized that, hey, you know what? I have a spot on earth. And just by being here, I'm worthy and I'm valuable. And when I got better, when I went to that third session, and it was just a shock. I mean, because I had to wear a mask and I had to wear oxygen. And so when people say that the mask is necessary, it's like, okay, don't do that. I know about that and you're wrong. So don't do that. I had to wear oxygen in order to be able to keep more pure air in my body. And when I didn't need that, and I could walk out, and a bus came by with that pollution and it didn't make me sick, and I smelled somebody fertilizing the yard and it didn't make me lose my vision, I was like, I was just like, oh my God. And so when I got that life back, I was just like, whoa. And I was told immediately, it's like, well, hey, you can come back and you can work for me again. Cause I used to do construction and I could fix anything in your house. But I was like, oh, no. It's like, I can do this healing work. And if I don't do this healing work, I'd be kicking God in the teeth. It's like, yeah, it'd be nice to go back to construction. That'd be easy. But to be able to help people to change their lives and to be able to bring that kind of hope, it's like, this is how I am. If we can't live like this every so often, if we can't go, yeah, if we can't do that every so often, why the hell are we here? I mean, seriously, that's a challenge I ask you guys. It's like, when you talk about one day for you guys, okay, have you been able to do that a couple of days through the week? Because if we can't live like that, or if we can't, hug somebody, and say, man, you made my day so much nicer, what are we doing? If we can't do that, why the hell are we here? We didn't come here to work for 3M or IBM or Microsoft or Netflix. We didn't come here to do that. We were born, and why were we born? We were born in a creator's image that created everything of awe, everything of awesomeness, everything. Because whether you look at the sunrise, the sunset, the starfish, the mackerel, the dove, every single thing here is just awesome and gorgeous. And you're one of those awesome and gorgeous things. And are you feeling that? Because it's like people go to the zoo for a special time. It's like, come on, the zoo's outside. It's like, have you gotten, excited about the fact that you see a robin or you hear a robin? Do you get excited about the fact that you can smell a plumeria? One day is right now. I've had too many times where one day was really a question. One day was not guaranteed. I sat there and I went to bed day after day for over 1.5 years, not knowing if I would wake up. So for me, one day is now. And it's like one day, it's like everybody talks about, well, the race things are going to get better. When? We got to do something now. We got to make one day today count. Are you going to be able to tell your neighbor that they matter, that they're cool, that they're okay? Are you going to email? Are you going to call? What are you going to do to basically be able to tell your grandkids? You're talking about your kids that aren't born yet. Are you going to be able to look at their kids someday and say, hey, you know what? when I was your dad's age, this is what I did to try and make people feel like they were safe. This is what I did so somebody wasn't freaked out because they were the wrong color in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean, this is, yeah, it's like, I love what you're pointing to there, because it's not just the actions of a few that have led to this, it's the inactions of the many. It's every time that we had an opportunity to speak up and we didn't.
Yeah.
I'm bringing Tom back in this.
Yeah.
Hey, Abram, so like let's give them the chance to connect and talk for a
Be
second.
back.
Mike has gotten really buzzy. Would you reset it really fast?
Yes.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
I had a mic problem earlier, but it was coming. I was getting some sort of static, but now I've been moving around. And Joe's been talking, but Joe, you've been moving me anyway. But I've been moving physically, and good stuff. I mean, your journey has been remarkable, and the fact that you can pull from that and share and uplift others. I mean, we're all uplifters, but there's some of us that is what we're meant to do full time. and so it's an incredible journey. And, you know, I think we're eternal beings. So, you know, I think, you know, when we do leave this physical life, we just go into the next room, right? There's a very thin veil between this. And I think you're right. We've come here for joy. And if it's anything else but joy, we're doing something wrong. And what's going on today, these are not, you know, these are not isolated instances, right? This is the world. We're creators, right? God created us, but we're created with those same creative powers. You know, if we could get lined up enough, we could walk on water, but we just don't believe we can. So we'll never walk on water, but we can do what you're doing, Joe. We can lift one person up one at a time, and that person can lift somebody up, and that person can lift somebody up. So,
you know, it's a time, you know, people want to, you know, do the Om and all that. And I understand that. I completely get it. I completely appreciate it and such like that. But it's also something, you know, Jesus flipped the tables. You know, Jesus says, hey, you know what? This is enough is enough. And so I'm not condoning the riots when I say that, but I definitely am condoning the fact that, okay, hold on a second. We need to be able to change. And so the joy, yes, but it's one of those things where, you know, they say no justice, no peace, you know, or where one is trampled upon, all are trampled upon. And I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like, we get to basically say, it's like, okay, yep, I'd like to have a cup of joy right now, but, you know, my brother here needs some help, you know? And
my argument would be that will bring you joy. Right. I mean, that brings you, when you can help somebody out, when you can lift them up, boy, I don't think there's anything that makes you feel better.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that's been terrific, because down here in Boca Raton in Florida, they had protests, and there was whites and there was blacks, and they were laughing and they were high-fiving, you know, and they were holding up their signs, you know, and but it was something it's like, hey, cool, you know, and people, you know, and so, helping each other is the most important thing right now, and not letting this go to sleep, you know, and the COVID stuff and everything like that, the same thing, you know, not letting it go to sleep. There's no way in hell that I want a guy that makes shitty computers that you need to buy virus protection. I don't want him to tell me he's going to protect me from a biological virus when he doesn't know, and all of his practices have failed, you know. There's no way I want that. So we have to be able to stand up, you know, and yes, when we can keep that joy and that respect for somebody else, and when we can see the divinity in somebody else and be able to say, this is what I feel. Hey, now it's your turn to speak. What do you think? You know, I think finding that respect with each other, like you were talking about, is great.
we're all one, right? We all
Yeah.
come from the same thing. You know, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I want to bring in a quote that feels relevant.
Oh, great.
None other than Mr. Alfred Einstein. He said, "If one day you have to choose between the world and love, remember this: if you choose the world, you'll be left without love. But if you choose love, with it you will conquer the world."
Cool.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That guy Einstein.
He was pretty smart. I think he was pretty smart.
You know, we used to have this expression when I was studying accounting in college, and we used to say, "That Mr. So-and-so, he knows something." But Einstein, it's and he also said imagination is the only thing. Imagination is more powerful than knowledge. And so if we can imagine a world that is love, then that's how we create. We create that imagination is our divinity. That's the Jesus in us, right? Jesus did say, you can do the things I can do and more when you connect to that. Mm-hmm. So that Einstein, that's perfect.
Now you're making me share another quote, because I've shared this a couple times before, but it's relevant to what you just said.
Okay.
Let the villages of the future live in our imagination, so that we might one day come to live in them.
Oh,
yeah.
Both of those are perfect. Yeah.
I love that one. Yeah. And if you can, that one is so powerful, because right now people, you ask people to dream and they don't know how to dream. When they were kids, who are you to think you deserve that? What do you think money? Right. So we haven't encouraged dreaming. And so when you tell somebody, imagine in the future that your black neighbor is going to be just as cool and just as great as you. Imagine your white neighbor is going to be just as happy and joyous and fun as you. People, it's hard for us to imagine. And so really encouraging that imagination, encourage that, like John Lennon, imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, when you brought up, I remember my mother, don't be a pipe dreamer, don't dream. No, get off, don't be on cloud nine. We were conditioned not to dream, not to imagine. Imagine it. When you connect with that imagination, which is that divinity inside, that is our power. We are creators. And so if we can stick to our image and imagine it, we can create it. And I just think we don't believe we can create it. We believe that it's on the outside of us, but it's not. It's on the inside. Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. There's another great quote here.
Abram up here with all the good quotes today.
I had them all on deck. I wasn't even going to show more than one, but you just keep segueing it like what I'm going to share.
That's perfect.
And this is the thing, one of the things that I always talk about it, and I loved your title, Tom, because I always talk about the power of one. People think, what can I do? And it's just like, well, you think about Gandhi, for God's sakes. He was one person, and he started this huge movement, and you think about Rosa Parks, just one person, think about Martin Luther King, one person, think about the janitor in your school. For me, the janitor in school, he made all of us happy. He knew the nuns were horrible. And so he would come by and he could tell which ones of us had gotten it, before. And so he would come by and he would try to make us happy. The 6th grade teacher came by and basically made you feel okay. Who's it? So we all get to be that one person. And by believing that somehow I can make a teeny difference, that's going to make your life better. That's going to make my life better. Like you said, Tom, when you bring that joy to somebody, it makes you happier. When you bring that freedom, then when you bring that respect, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
All good, man. Sometimes bringing that joy is done by being an example of the opposite of what a person believes. So just as an example,
yes.
There's this mindset that I see in this country of scarcity, that there's this pervasive idea that there's not enough resources. And so therefore we have to compete for resources. And that, if I had to pick one ideology that has led to the despair that we feel in this country today, that would probably be the one, is this idea of scarcity. Mm-hmm. And it's in my experience, it's simply not true. And this is something that was pointed out to me when I was living on Hawaii for many, many years. You know, the Hawaiian culture isn't a culture of scarcity. They're a culture of abundance. There's enough of everything.
Yes.
As long as we live in harmony and we work as a community.
Yes.
You know, we don't live in a world of scarcity. Scarcity is a man-made phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's it's using your human imagination the wrong way.
It's just like the ego. It's the space of it's an illusion, just like the ego. It's a false concept. Just wanted to. We have some people viewing on Facebook. I was just gonna bring in one comment from India, Gurleen. She said, "Love begets love, and love is the ultimate remedy."
I love it. Perfect.
And
love just produces love and more love. You know, you get love is love, right? I mean, you can't even saying the word makes you happy. You know,
I love it. I love it. Well,
exactly.
This has been amazing. I really appreciate both of you sharing, and this has been an awesome conversation for so many. It's opened up a lot for me, and I know it's opened up a lot for the people viewing. You both sharing yourself, but this is happening every time where there's this connection without any plan. Like there's always some alignment with what both of our guests share that thematically, and I think who you both are being and what you're both up to is very much it's beautiful, but it's alignment with one day, but it brings us all closer. It brings us closer to that love, just like Einstein was saying. It brings us closer to love, which we'll conquer the world with, and that's why we're here. We're here to love. We're not here to make a little bit of money and try to look cool and and then just leave that. There's something way bigger at play, and I think at this time in the world, more people are coming to that realization, even if they haven't fully articulated yet. But thank you both so much for sharing. I hope you both will come back and share with us more. This has been awesome. This has been a great conversation, and I'm really inspired, and I look forward to having you both come back again. And also to our viewers, I want to say thank you all for tuning in with us and just sharing your presence. And we encourage you to join us and share on the stage with us. But I think this is a beautiful time to share who you are, because there's so many people who are open to something bigger than themselves, and that's really what our vision is about: is humanity rising in a connected world, with each person's unique contributions being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. Every single one of us has a unique gift, a unique genius that contributes to us all. And when we all see ourselves for who we actually truly are, beneath the labels, beneath the story, beneath the thoughts, the emotions, there's something much bigger at play. And it's something that is infinite, and it's something that we always have access to. And that's what we have access to today. And that's what one day is. It's not something in the future. It's not something that happens that we have no responsibility or part of. It is something we cause right now. The one day of the future is the one day right now. And that's all there is. There's no such thing as anything but right now. But thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you again on Thursday. I love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe. And until then, one day is today. I love you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.